Hi everyone, welcome back to our series on building a real estate management application in Bubble. In this video, which is the second in the series, we are going to look at property listing management. So this is for the landlords, the owners, the real estate agents, the sellers, even the brokerage firms, to manage all of the properties that they're responsible for. Getting those pictures uploaded, all of the amenities, details, the pricing information. It's one place for them to manage everything. And then on the other side, to look at the SEO-friendly detail page per property so that a potential buyer or renter has a place to look at and maybe even share this page with others to see all the information about that property. So this is a page that would come up in search results, for example. Now, we're going to dive into the most common functionality that we've seen around both of those sides there. And this is functionality that, our clients as well have worked into their applications, the ones who are building real estate related apps. There's lots of different ways to approach these things, so I just really want to touch on what's possible, ways to think about approaching these different features, and just kind of share the capabilities here. Okay, now if you're new around here, my name is Gabby. I am the co-founder of Coaching No Code Apps, where we help non-technical entrepreneurs build applications for their business or grow and scale their existing businesses all without code. All right, so let's get started here. I'm gonna make my video a little bit smaller. I've got a preview page here. This is a page that I created just to kind of walk you through this for managing properties. Now, if you have watched our other series on marketplace applications, you're actually going to see a lot of similarities here. And that's just because managing data in general, regardless of whatever type of application you're building, there's going to be a lot of overlap. You can only create records so many different ways or edit records so many different ways. It really just comes down to the unique combination of how you design your layouts, the sequence of actions of how things are carried out. So I'm actually going to be pulling a lot of what I did in that marketplace listings management, right? Where if you want to sell a product or a service, and kind of bring that in here, because a lot of this stuff is going to work the same way. We want to see a list of our listings, and I'm going to remove the status here real quick. So I've got 11 listings. I can filter by some category. In this case, it's the status of the listing. And when I go to edit one, right, I can click between my different listings, and you can see over here things are changing. I'm going to see all the information about it, and now I have a form that I can interact with to edit this information. That piece alone can work so many different ways. If I click on edit, I can be taken to a separate page, or I can be shown a pop-up. I can have, the layout of this can work very differently, where maybe it's not side by side. I switch from one view to another view. Lots of different ways. Because my forms are pretty simple here, I'm having them side by side so we can kind of see everything together. But again, whether it's a property listing or it's a product, a lot of this management can work very, very similarly. And it's really up to you to get creative with, what's going to make sense for your users. How do you want to present this information? How are you going to break it up step by step so that it's easy for them to follow and it's pretty intuitive? Okay, now I am building on top of this, of course, for walking through these features that are more specific to a real estate property management type of environment. So one of the things that I added here was this concept of a link. Okay, so this is an SEO-friendly URL that will take the user to a detail page for this listing. This is kind of that next step. We've created all the information. Now, when we publish it, what does that look like? What does that published page look like? I've got a couple of different options here for the back-end person to interact with this link. First of all, I have the app generating the link for them, so they can't actually edit this. I did that intentionally so that the structure of the link is uniform across all listings. We don't run into any situations where we have duplicate links and then there's a conflict. So the user can copy. Okay, so we've got a little copy to clipboard piece of functionality, and you'll see if I click on my address bar here and hit paste, this is the link that's being generated. So it's taking my app's domain, which is just a Bubble hosted domain right now, and we're in the development version. And then it's going to take me to a specific page in my application. So I'll show you that in a moment. And my page is called Real Estate Detail. And then there's the unique piece here that points to this one particular property. And I chose to set that unique slug to the property's address because that's going to be a unique value. You're not going to have two different properties at the same address. If we're talking about like an apartment or a duplex of some sort, then the address is still going to be unique enough where it's going to have the unit number, apartment number, whatever it might be. So that will still keep the address different. Okay, so, and this is also more human friendly to look at, identifying, if I'm a potential buyer and I'm keeping a spreadsheet of all the properties that I'm interested in, and I've got all these links, it's really easy for me to identify just by looking at the link which address each one is for, okay? So I got that copied to clipboard, makes it easy to just kind of share, paste into an email, do whatever you need to do. And I also have this open external link icon here. So I'm gonna click on that now. So now I'm having the app navigate me to this detail page, okay? So we can see this is the same link that I copied, but I'm having the app take me there. And this is an example of a detail page that is gonna be dynamic, right? So it's going to pull all the information from that one property and fill in all of these elements for me. So for a different property, right, it would be a different slug. So it would be a different address, same page, okay? I've only designed and created and built out one page in the application, but it's set up to be dynamic so that it pulls all that information from the database and just fills everything in. Everything is the same layout. It's the content that changes. So up at the top, my header here, I've got the title for the property. That's actually something that, let me switch over here. Let me actually open up this group real quick. Over here, oh, sorry, not that one. This one here. So I'm giving the user the ability to define a title. So the title could be different from the address. It could be something that's a little bit more kind of attention grabbing. Okay, so this title is just 3-bed, 2-bath, single family home. And right below will show the actual address. On the right over here, we have the status and a couple of shareable links here. So this is pulling from a plugin actually that Bubble has. It makes it really easy to share the page that you're on via different social networks. So if I click on Facebook, for example, it's going to open up the Facebook, page. I have to log in to do that. Twitter, same thing. Open this up. It's going to pre-fill a tweet for me so that I can read through it, edit it, and then send it off, right? You see right there, there's the description. That's actually the title of the listing and then the link, okay? So you can do this, and there's many, many, many different services that you can choose from. It's all part of the plugin. I didn't have to configure any of that. It's just kind of out of the box for me, which is really nice. And for the application, because I want my users to be able to favorite, what the listings that they like and be able to see a list of their favorites, we have this little heart icon to do that. And I don't think I'm actually logged in right now, so it might not be working exactly right, but that's the idea there, right? So I engage with an icon and it will update my user account and say, okay, we're gonna add this listing to that account. Now go to your dashboard, here are all of your favorited items. It's a bookmarking system. So down here, I have a little map element to plot the address directly on the map. I've got a slideshow going on an auto loop. This is also using a plugin that Bubble has. There are actually a few different slideshow options available for you. You have a lot of control over this as well. So the timing, whether it goes on an auto loop for you, or if you want the user to kind of hit some next arrows, there's lots and lots of different ways you can do slideshows. You can click into it so it shows in a bigger pop-up, so you see the image at a bigger resolution. A lot you can do there. And then imagine, all of the details that you would want to see about that property that the owner, the real estate agent set up in the back end from their perspective. So any amenities, any other details about the neighborhood, other pricing information, requirements that they might have for any potential applicants, you can display them on this page. So it's all about just designing and setting up a generic layout, and then the application will fill in all of the details from your database to populate your template. Okay, so I've got some dummy text here filling this in to kind of show you that you can show more information. And again, this page can be designed so many different ways. It doesn't have to all be here all at once. You can have things tabbed off. If you want to click on section 1, we see section 1, click on a second tab, see section 2. Maybe I'm even taken to other pages from here. It's completely up to you. So we can also see related information. So an agent is a user in the application. So I'm pulling this related information tied to the listing. I'm seeing the agent's picture, their name, their contact info, and we have something that the user can interact with, a form, right? And I can set up the application so that when someone fills out the form and they click on that button, it's going to send them an email. It's going to send the email to this address here, whichever agent is tied to it, and we'll have, we'll be able to see who to reply back to because we're collecting that user's email address. So making it really easy for everybody to engage. So I'm going to take you into the back end a little bit on all of these things that I just walked you through. So from the owner's perspective, the property manager's perspective, we are working with properties. Okay, so we've got this data type here called listing, and this is, I've created a field for everything that I want to store about the listing. Okay, the photo, the price, who the seller is, the status. This is pulling from an option set. So if they're not ready to publish, a listing can be in a draft status, so it's not available for pulling up, in a public search. And that's all, those are all conditions that you can create around the pages as well. For example, if the page is loaded and the listing, the page's listing is in a draft status, redirect the user away from it. They can't ever load the page. You can also make an exception. If I'm the owner of the listing, doesn't matter what status it is, I can always see the page, right? It's private to me. All of that logic, completely up to you. You have complete control over that. It's really just use your imagination, okay? And really you're leveraging the values of your own database, of the fields here, everything that has been saved there. You can use it to your advantage. So this listing is the structure of that record, this data type here. And so I have this interface where the user can fill in information, and each of these inputs are going to map to those fields, and so all of that gets saved there. This repeating group on the left-hand side is showing me all of my listings, right? I'm searching for listings. I've got a couple of constraints there, so I can filter the search. Right now I've got these two drop downs so that it filters it by the status or by the type. That way it can cut down. It's easier for me to find my listings. Now this link that is generated for the user is a really awesome feature by Bubble, where if you have a data type that is, or I should say, if you have a page in your application that is set up to receive a specific record in your database, then you can generate these links. Okay, so if I jump over to the detail page, right, here's my backend editor for that detail page. This page has been set up to be of type listing. That means that it's going to expect a listing record to be passed over to it. And that link generator that Bubble has kind of built in, it's baked into this platform, makes it really easy for me to create a URL to this page specifically for a listing. So it'll insert that slug for me. So here, I'm just going to the parent group's listing, so the listing that we're currently editing, and I'm navigating to this link expression. This is, again, it's just a built-in function for Bubble. So Bubble's saying, okay, I see you want to create a link for this listing. What page do you want me to create this URL for? This is the only page I happen to have set up in my application where the type of content is set to listing, and so it knows, okay, it's going to go to that real estate detail page, right? That's what we have here in the URL. That's the name of my page. And again, just to be clear, this is the editor for that page, and we can see the name right there. Okay, so it's your base domain, then your page name, and then finally the slug. Now, we're not going to see the slug set up here in this link expression. Bubble's going to default to it when it's creating this link. If there is a slug set up for a listing, it will add it there for you. That's the priority. Whenever we're creating a listing or we're updating a listing, we can change the slug if we want. The way that I've set this up is that as soon as this is published, okay, I'm going to set a slug to this listing, right? I'm making changes to the listing. I'm saving all the details for my inputs, but I'm also going to separately define the slug. I'm not giving the user control over this. Oh, though I could let them define the slug, and Bubble will know, Bubble's smart enough to know if there's going to be a duplicate, and it will handle that for you. But here I'm saying, hey, take this listing and change the slug to whatever I put here. In my case, I want to set it to the address because I know that that's unique and I'm not going to run into any problems. So when Bubble creates that link, it will set it to that slug. Okay, and I have a couple of functions here to help the user navigate to that link. So this is a copy to clipboard, which is just using a plugin. We're using I believe it's the Air copy to clipboard. Really simple to work with, really easy to set up. So here's the action, copy to clipboard. What do we want to copy? Well, we want to copy the listings link, again, just generating that URL again. And I'm showing a little alert message to say, you did it, you copied to clipboard, just to give the user some visual indicator that it happened. And then this icon here is just running an open page action, open external website. Again, going to the exact same link that's generated so that we can view it. Okay, so you can provide like a share icon to help users copy to clipboard and then paste it in an email, share it in a chat, whatever they need to do from there. Let's see, now going over to the detail page, this is where everything just comes together. So we've created the content, we have the links structure set up so that it's easy to find, easy to share, easy to come up in search results. So how do we populate this page? Well, because this page has been set to type of content listing, Bubble knows that it can reference a specific listing record. So we have this expression, it's a shortcut really to that listing, the current page listing. So you're going to see everywhere here, I'm referencing the current page listing. Bubble knows, okay, see that slug in that URL? That belongs to a very specific listing. So we're going to pull that listing's title, that listing's address, and fill in all these details here. So all of these elements, they're dynamic. They're pulling in from the listings record. Title, address, the status over here, even the map is pulling in the address there to plot it on the map. And that way, every single listing is going to be organized in the same way. It's just that the data is different. It's a dynamic page, right? There's only one real estate, let me pull this here, real estate detail page. I don't have hundreds of detail pages created in my app for my hundreds of listings. One dynamic page. That concept can be applied to anything that is going to be dynamic. User profile, again, like products or services that you're selling, events. If the layout's going to be the same and it just needs to change the content, that's the system that you want to use there. All right, well, that was a quick look at setting up your listings on the back end for one type of user and displaying it on the front end. Well, I should say both of them are front end interfaces that you're creating for your users, but you have different types of users, right? You've got the landlords, the owners, and then you have the potential buyers or renters. So you're creating different interfaces for each of them. But the landlords and owners, they're really manipulating the data a lot more. They're the ones that are creating the records, editing them, changing statuses. And you are designing these preview pages for everybody to see, just displaying that data back in a nicely organized way. When it comes to real estate management applications, it's really important to make it easy to get all of those details in. There's often a lot of information that is associated with a property. Get it all in nice and organized in a consistent manner, and then displaying it back to the user in a really easy to follow, easy to read, easy to consume kind of way. I'll also say that, what we've seen with our own clients building real estate related applications is that typically they'll connect to external databases, third-party sources that already have tons of listing information. So rather than adding this in manually, they'll connect to these databases and import all of the information. So you can create these really custom import flows, workflows to connect, and as you receive that data, map them to different fields in your database, and you're generating these records a lot faster just in bulk. Different sources will have different structures. So with every connection, you're going to have to create different flows to say, okay, this one source, their description lives in a field called description, whereas this other source, it lives in a field called short description versus long description. Maybe they have different, versions. So it can get very granular like that. But we've seen it done, it works really well, and it just takes a little bit more care for you to put that together. So if you're talking about really scaling up the database and getting information from the outside world rather than having users manually enter it in, you're likely looking at an API integration, possibly like a CSV import, which you can also do to get things in very quickly into your application. All right, if you are building a real estate management app, I hope you're able to take something away from this. In the next video in the series, we're going to look at tenant management. So taking a closer look at working with individual users who might be submitting applications, who might need to communicate with their landlords, their agents, tracking things with them. So we'll be looking forward to that. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you can get notified when the next video in the series is released. We'll see you there.